Hello, everybody. So there's a really interesting bit of footage that's been circulating online for a while. This is a guy called Wayne Couzens who was getting interviewed by police. It was like an emergency interview at his home address, I believe. He murdered... It's pretty grim, this, but as is most stuff on this channel, there's no humour to get out of this as opposed to the lawn stuff. It's all pretty grim, so you have been warned. But this is a guy who raped and murdered a young woman down in the London area in I think it was last year, and he, at the time that this went on, at the time that this particular footage was recorded, they didn't know whether this young woman was still alive or not, so they authorised an emergency interview at his home address without the need for a solicitor, because obviously in the normal circumstances in England a solicitor is required if the subject requests one. But in order to, because obviously there's got to be contingencies in place for if someone's still alive, you don't go through all the trouble of getting a solicitor, and because you'll get dicked about basically by these people. And they're just trying to do everything that they can to trace this woman. Unfortunately, they weren't able to find her in time because this guy at this point had already killed her, but they didn't know that. This is an interesting little setup because he's at his home address. He's handcuffed, as you can see on the screen now. Yeah, you can see that on the right of the screen. You can see that he's handcuffed. And he's got, you'll see it as it goes on, but you'll see that he's being questioned. He's got officers on both sides of him. He's at his home address. There's a little bit of a play going on, a little bit of a game, should I say, because he knows what he's done, obviously. They know, they've got information that he's without a doubt involved. He's not sure how much they know, but as we go on, you'll see why it's an interesting bit of footage.
Right. My name's... Do I have to take this off? Yeah. Is that alright? Yeah? You like on stuff?
I think I've left out an important part in case you're not aware. This guy is a police officer, or was a police officer at the time that this occurred. He was a firearms police officer. Now, most of my listening audience is from the States, and our gun situation is very different over here. Even police are not armed. You may know that already, but in order to get armed as a police officer over here, you have to go... You get a job as a police officer, then you have to apply to be a police officer that holds the firearms, and it's a very difficult process to get through. It's something that, because our gun laws are very different, and we don't have, if someone's found with a gun over here, it's a huge deal. But this guy... was a firearms police officer, which makes this scenario even more interesting because he has a knowledge of how these kind of investigations will go. He's not a detective, so how much he will know how investigations like this play out, but he won't know the specific intricate details more than likely because he's not been involved. He may have been, but as I understand it, I did a bit of reading on his background. I don't think he's ever done any detective work, and which will be evident in some of the shit that he comes out with.
You sure? Yeah. Right. It's just more easier to talk to you. Yeah. With what we're talking about.
So, you have the officer is using a body cam. Obviously, all of these are very, very widely used across the, in a lot of forces over the world. So you got the officer there sat to the right of him, and then the detective sat on the other side, who's questioning him.
This is Aaron. Aaron Cash is also and Marcus Sellers. Okay. So we're here to talk to you about Sarah. I'm going to show you a picture.
Now, it's just a strange scenario. Just think about what's. Just look at that image on your screen there now. You've got this guy looking at a picture on that detective's smartphone of the girl he's just murdered, and he now knows that he's in big trouble. I mean, he's handcuffed for a start. This detective is speaking in such a calm and almost stoic-like way, which is brilliant.
Do you know Sarah?
I don't know.
Okay. Sarah went missing. I'll show you some pictures of her on the day.
Okay.
Sarah went missing on Wednesday. And her parents.
Now you can see he's breathing. He's breathing quite heavily there. Is an increased breathing. His blood, all of the physiological changes that you would expect in a situation like this. There's no defiance. He's kind of already beaten down. There's just so much going on there. And he's already denied. He said, "Do you know this woman?" "No, I don't."
Obviously, and her family are really worried about her now. The inquiry that's been conducted so far has led us to come and speak to you about it and to see what you know about Sarah. Okay. So, would you like to? Do you know where Sarah is?
No.
Right. Okay. Do you know anything about what happened to her?
I know that she went missing up in London somewhere. About a week ago or so. Just from what I got on the news.
Okay. Have you ever heard?
Okay, so it's quite clear from the way that he's speaking. Even not a trained observer will be able to know that there's something. If you was in that scenario and nothing had have happened, you'd no knowledge of it. There'd be a completely different. I mean, everybody reacts in different ways, but you'd be like, right, I don't understand what's going on here. Yeah, of course I know. It's like, yeah, she was on the news. There'd be some kind of but he's just totally beaten down already, isn't he? He's trying to already think of a way of getting out of it, and this is what he comes out with.
Personally met her?
No, not personally, man.
Have you had any interactions with her at all?
No, why would I have personal interactions with her?
Well, it's very difficult because I can't go into a lot of the.
Let's go back, because that's an interesting part.
Just from what I got on the news.
Okay. Have you ever personally met her?
No, not personally, man.
Have you had any interactions with her at all?
No, why would I have personal interaction?
I mean, he's mumbling, isn't it? Oh, why would I? But so, 1,000,001 things will be going through his brain. He's in survival mode at this point, and he has just said, because if he says I've had no personal interactions with her, it'll be thinking, right, have they found some kind of forensic evidence or something like that?
With her.
Well, it's very difficult because I can't go into a lot of the evidence because obviously that's not part of what an urgent interview is.
Even the cat's getting a good seat. This cat's thinking, this is interesting stuff. I'm getting a good seat.
Okay. This interview is just about trying to find her.
Sure.
She's been missing for a while now.
I'm sat in handcuffs and asking me what I know her. So you must have something to say that I know her.
Yeah, so in other words, he wants to know, what have you got on me here? Tell me what you've got, and then I'll respond appropriately, and then I don't land myself in more shit, is basically what he's doing.
Well, as I said, you've been arrested on suspicion of kidnap, and we believe that you've been involved in her disappearance and taking her away from her family.
Okay.
And he's nodding. Interesting, isn't it? He's nodding up and down as if to say, yes. Yeah, that's exactly what I've done. Okay. It's interesting. Listen to what he's saying. What are you talking about? It's like, okay, nod, yes.
So we are trying to find her. Obviously, everybody is very worried about her. She's got, parents. She's got, she's got siblings. She's got a boyfriend. There's a lot of people that care about her.
Sure.
You've seen her on the news. The number of people that are reaching out about her.
Sure.
They're looking for her every day, and she's missing. And our job, our primary job here is to find her, and to try and find her safe and well.
Okay.
Now, the reason that they have got information at this point in the investigation is that he hired a car to abduct her. Why? I can't. I was reading about it, and he used his own documentation to hire the car. You know, they traced it back to the hire company. They used CCTV, and they found out that there was CCTV of that car that he hired, and Sarah, the young woman that was killed, was seen getting into the vehicle. It's believed he used his powers of arrest and faked. I don't think it's exactly know what happened, but I'm just thinking, why would you hire a car and you use your own details? Like, surely you'd know it'd be traced back to you at some point. Very strange.
Now, we believe that you know something about where she is, and that's why we're here, to look for her and to try and find her. And that's why we're talking to you now, is to try and get you to have a good think about it, and tell us anything you can about whether we might be able to find her.
Okay. Well, I am in financial, and
There's a little bit of a blank out there, so there's information that they don't want us to know. But so straight away, it's what's his opening phrase? I'm in financial trouble. It's not my fault. I've got mitigating circumstances, but this is where he starts to give them some information.
been lent on by, I don't know who they are. They're a group, a gang, whatever.
Listen to what he says. They're a gang. I don't know who they are. They're a gang, whatever. Just think, if you were in that situation, you wouldn't say, oh, whatever. You tell them everything that you know. Or whatever is a narrative that you're spinning when you can't think of what else to say. It's where your brain has stopped working. It's stopped functioning for what you need it for at that point. It's run out. The neurons have stopped firing, or whatever. It's pretty pathetic.
And they told me, right, I need to go and pick up girls and give them to them.
I mean, he was told to do it by a gang that are manipulating him. Is the narrative he's spinning?
So I said, what's happening? And it then came through that they're going to harm my family, take them away, and they'll use them instead. At that point, I had no option to try and find somebody. So I don't. There's a couple of names. I was told a place to take her. That's it. That's all.
So his story is he's got into some trouble with a gang or whatever. He doesn't know who they are, so in other words, he can't give them any more information that they can check his story and tell that he's talking bullshit. They said it doesn't abduct a woman. For them, they will then hurt his family, so he had no choice. It's really sad. I mean, on a number of levels, but the narrative is pathetic, it's cowardly, it's interesting what the human brain can come up with, because rather than just... I mean, you've got to sort of look at it from the perspective that he's not going to... Some people do come clean in these circumstances. They just realise that there's no getting out of it. But him, rather than have some humanity come to the surface and say, this is where she is, go and find her, I've done this terrible thing, there's none of that there. It's not my fault, I was coerced into this, please believe me, bullshit.
It's all I know. I handed it to this group of people.
Tell me about them. I need to find them. Tell me everything you know.
Okay.
That you'll help me.
There was a white Sprinter van.
That is a great question. Tell me everything that you know about them. We need to find them. And there's some urgency in the detective's voice then. He has to he knows it's bullshit to some degree. He's going to know. But he has to follow that line of questioning. He says, right, okay, there's another gang involved. You tell me who they are and we'll find them. Hopefully we can find out where Sarah is.
They are
Pauses. Just trying to think of some bullshit.
it was between sort of Len and Maidstone area that I dropped her off.
Right, he's not even, so they dropped her off. That doesn't seem to make sense. Just giving a vague description of the area, no details on them whatsoever.
I still don't know. I don't know. They just I just parked my car.
Shrugs his shoulders. I don't know. He's still not telling them any information. Nothing's going on.
Up, and then the van come up behind me, flashed me. They all jumped out, and then they took this girl. They said, you've done good, and
Right, okay, so what he's saying is that they jumped out. He got this girl. They jumped out and said, you've done good, and then took the girl.
I don't know.
So if that's believed to be true, he's been told where to go. So where was the location? They'd obviously had intricate communications because they knew where to meet, at what time. They knew kind of what was going on. So there's a lot of, if that was true, there's a lot of details that he'd be able to give them.
My family's going to be alright still. But they threatened to take my family away from me. So at that point, I'm doing what I can to protect my family. That's it. So all I know is that it was a roundabout. We could drive there now. I could show you. But roughly, I don't know Lenham, Maidstone area at all.
We drive there, I can show you, but roughly Maidstone area, that makes no sense. You either know or you don't. And the only description we have of this gang so far is white Sprinter van. That's just like a white van. Okay, that's just like, how often do you see a white van on the fucking road?
Did it on Google. If we did it on Google Maps, like Google Earth, if we drove it, would you
Right.
be able to do it?
I drove from Ashford to Maidstone.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
There's a roundabout that breaks up, I guess. So this is the first big roundabout that you come to. And you would carry straight over to Maidstone, but instead I went round that roundabout and back up another road. And at that point, I was flashed and pulled over. You guys.
So basically, I don't know where. I would imagine that part of this journey that he's describing is where he sought out this woman. He sought her out. He had some kind of an interaction with her before he murdered her, I believe. I think he was maybe stalking her. But obviously the white, getting ambushed is obviously a fiction.
Just got out, opened my door, opened that door, pushed me out against the front of the car, took the girl, drove off. That's it. They said we'll be in touch. So I'm here. I'm off work with stress because I'm here.
He did call off work with stress. He handed his firearms over. Of course, you've just murdered somebody for the first time. It may not be the first time. He may have got away with it before. But I'm going to make the assumption that it's the first time he's killed anyone. And of course, he's going to be stressed. He's going to be worrying about what he's done. Some people don't. Pure psychopaths, they just carry on as normal. But with regard to how he's acting here and his lack of composure, the fact that he hasn't got any kind of plan, he hasn't got any kind of alibi, it was clearly something that he was driven on impulse. he's not got a clue what he's doing. He's in way over his head, this guy.
Protect my family. I want to be here 24/7 for my.
And he said that numerous times. Protect my family. Protect my family. This is why I've done it. It's to, it's the coward's way out, isn't it? It's the ultimate defence. If I didn't do it, people would kill the people closest to me. Bollocks.
Family. They come from my family. I've got nothing myself. I've got no choice.
I'll go back through the route with you in a minute, alright? But how do they contact you? How did you contact them?
I tried to roll one of their call girls and rip her off. So she's told them, and they've got me.
Okay, he's not answered the question. He says, how do they contact you? What he means is, do they call you? Do they fucking email you? Do they turn up at your house with a, what do they do? How do they contact you? How do they give you these instructions? And he just says, all he said that he was involved in a call girl, it went wrong, and then they had hold of him, which of course can happen.
So
How do they contact you? How is it they've been in contact with you to make these threats?
they just tell me, be here. So Hotel Burston down in Folkestone, got to be here. Okay, so I turned up. I've got no mobile number, and they have got my mobile number. They're obviously outside watching, following.
Right, so what he's trying to say is that they just... he's obviously saying, oh, they haven't got my number, they never call me, I don't know theirs, they just turn up. So he walks outside the door and magically they appear and say, do A, B and C.
I just, honestly...
How are they telling you to be there? How is it they're giving those directions?
Yeah, they'll come outside. So they'll be outside here.
Yeah.
And then they'll say, right, you're going to be in Folkestone at this time, or you're going to be in Ashford at this time. That's it. There's no links, no telephone numbers.
Nothing that can be tracked back to verify what he's saying, which is a bit, from his perspective, a double-edged sword, because he's saying, right, you can't disprove what I'm saying, but you also can't prove what he's saying. And if the burden of proof is on him, if the evidence that they've got is strong, and even under these circumstances, even if what he was saying was true, it's just mitigating factors. What he's saying is that I didn't murder, I kidnapped somebody. So if that is true, and with a skilled bunch of investigators and this clown, it wouldn't be able to disprove his claims. He's trying to stupidly lower it to just a kidnap rather than a murder and rape. But he got charged with both. And he had the audacity recently to try and overturn his life sentence, would you believe, which failed, thankfully.
I'm completely on my own, but at the same time being threatened. It had Romanian plates on the van, white, like Mercedes Sprinter type van. There's a transporter, a blue.
And that's it. So this is the only footage that was released, I believe. I'll see if I can get hold of some more, but I don't think there's any available. So yeah, Eastern European gang, unknown identities other than that. They're the ones responsible. I didn't do anything other than abduct her, and I got into this mess because I was involved in a call girl and it went wrong. I just thought I kind of say I like this video. That's kind of not the. I mean, people like me and you listening to some degree, we are drawn to these true crime scenarios. We find them compelling. I have to be careful the way I word it, not to disrespect the people that, because there's people's lives have been destroyed. There's that poor girl who lost her life, and there's the families, the investigators, and he's a police officer as well. And what really pisses me off about that is, because couple of my best mates are police officers, and 99% of them do a great job. And then someone like this comes along and it makes their job even harder because it undermines their position. And people will point out, well, what about that? I mean, there was a huge issue. The commissioner of police in London had to resign over this. I mean, there was other issues as well, but she kind of got blamed for it, really. I mean, there was a whole issue with this guy. He had a reputation in the cops as being a stalker, would you believe? So there's obviously a cultural issue as to why it wasn't, why this guy was allowed to be in this position. But you can, it's unfortunate because, fortunately, you get people like this in almost every walk of life. You get doctors who are murderers, you get entertainers, you get sportsmen. It's just with the police, obviously their job is to protect people, and it's very scary when people that are there to protect you can be like this. But unfortunately, it's kind of a humanity problem rather than a police problem. But of course, steps can be taken to try and prevent people like this being in that position, of course. But I just found this little clip intriguing, so I just wanted to share my take on it. So I hope you found it compelling as well. Like I said, it's pretty grim, but let me know what your thoughts are, and thanks for watching.